Hey guys, so we're thinking here about decimal place value. So when we think about our place value chart, we're going to be not to the left of the decimal over here, right, in the land of whole numbers necessarily, but we're going to be thinking more about the numbers and the place value spots to the right of the decimal in decimal land. So go ahead, grab a sheet of notebook paper from your Chaos Keeper and make it look like this. You can pause the video. Great, welcome back. So now that we have our notes set up, we're going to go ahead and make this here be 10 times the size and 100 times the size of our target number. So our target number this time is going to be 0.02. But we know as we look over here and we write it in, if we type or write 0.02, the way that we say that in decimal fancy talk is we look for that last digit of value. It happens to be this 2, and it's in the hundredths. So we read it as 2 hundredths. You don't need to say 0 and 2 hundredths necessarily, right? You can keep that 0 there just to remind yourself and others that there is nothing in whole number land, but you can read it as 2 hundredths. So here we go. So our first thing that we want to try to parse through, right, is we want to find out the number that is 10 times the size of 2 hundredths. So as we travel to our place value chart, we know that we're bringing this with us, this 10 times bigger. We're going to end up multiplying it essentially by 10 or a power of 10, one place value spot. We know that we're going to end up with something bigger than 2 hundredths, and bigger in the land of decimal means that it's closer to 0, right? So if you keep going to the left, you're going to keep getting numbers that are bigger. Okay, so we're going to multiply this by 10 or 10, so one place value spot. So our last digit of value is a 2. We're going to move it one place value spot closer. And then we end up, we can fill in that 0 there. So we have 0.2, or we have 0 and 2 tenths, or you could just read it as tenths. So now we're going to check it with another strategy. So this strategy I like to call the whoop strategy. You're going to whoop the decimal in a direction that is going to make, in this case, your number, your decimal number 200ths, 10 times bigger. And the way that I think of this is that I think of, okay, I know that in 10, I'm multiplying it by 10, it's going to be bigger. So I know that I'm going to end up whooping my decimal one place value spot because there's 1 0, just like in our chart, right? But instead of using the chart, we're going to whoop the decimal. So we're going to end up whooping the decimal one place value spot for 1 0. This kind of even looks like, if you kept going, you could like make it look like a 0, right? You're moving it one place value spot. And we can check, right, if we moved it in the right direction by dropping down what we have. So we have a 0. The decimal was here, but it's not anymore. The decimal's now here, and we'll drop down that 2. 2 tenths is bigger than 2 hundredths, right? So this checks out. Check. Either strategy works. Say you were to move the decimal in the other direction. You're like, I don't know which way to move it. Say you moved it this way, right? And then you drop down everything you have, 0, 0, 2. You still whooped it one place value spot, but this time 0.002 is 2 thousandths, which are smaller than hundredths. So we know that this is not 10 times bigger. So now we're going to take that same target number, 200ths, and we're going to multiply it, and it's a multiplication sign, by 100. So we want it to be 100 times bigger. So 100 times bigger, this is what we're bringing with us, right? 100 has 2 zeros or 2 place value spots. So we're going to move this to the left one spot, but that's not enough. We're going to keep it going 2 spots, right? Times 10 got us here, times 100 got us here. So 2 100ths times 100 gets us 2. So if we now get our whoop on, right, and we're going to make this 100 times bigger, we're going to whoop one decimal place value spot here for this 0, and we're going to whoop the decimal another place value spot here for this 0. And we end up dropping it down 0, 0, 2 point, and we could add a 0 back here, but we end up with the same thing with 2. So either way, either strategy, 2 is 100 times the size of 200.